You won't even believe how realistic Disneyland is going to look in this game. I have a huge update for you guys on the Disneyland Railroad Simulator. Ever since I published the previous update last month, we've had 4 volunteers join our team. Extremely talented people who have built models beyond our wildest expectations, and the speed and momentum of our project has tripled. I'm going to show you each team member's progress, and I'm going to answer a lot of the questions that you guys have asked in the last update. But first, here is the final model of the Jungle Cruise boat dock from 1955 that I built. The construction of the model is complete, now it only awaits colors and textures. The whole point of the game is the trains, so any buildings along the tracks of the railroad will be of the highest detail, whereas buildings located toward the center of the park will have slightly lower detail to help save on graphics loading and processing. That being said, the park will be designed so players can explore it through the years and really enjoy a representation of what it used to be. Even if you're not big into operating real steam locomotives, you can still enjoy a ride on the trains or explore the onstage areas of the park. This Jungle Cruise dock is a great example of the low poly detail we plan to have towards the center regions of Disneyland. As you can see, it still looks detailed for being low poly, and it represents the original structure quite well. Another thing I made recently is this wheel truck. Wheel trucks are also sometimes referred to as bogies, and they are the steel assemblies that hold and transfer loads to the wheels, allowing train cars to navigate around turns. The old passenger wheel trucks from the 2017 game are the ones with the red wheels, but mine are designed to be a little more detailed and more accurate. I also built this vintage upright air compressor for the 1955 Railroad Roundhouse. It's just another prop that will sit in the background to fill out the space. Before I get into the models that the others on the team have built, we need to discuss the maps that we plan to have. In the last update, I asked for everyone's opinions, and I received a lot of feedback, so our team has settled on a plan for the maps. Keep in mind that while some buildings in these maps are accessible, such as my Jungle Cruise dock, you should not expect every building to be open or even expect to go on other rides. These will be combinations of static and animated models. We took note of the time jumps people wanted and decided to compromise, and I threw out the idea of doing a fictional Disneyland of Walt's dreams. Instead, we're going more with Preston's original idea. We start with 1955 because of its significance to Disneyland history, and this map will represent the first full year of the park's existence, so not necessarily opening day. The next map will be Disneyland of the 1960s, mainly representing the mid-60s, and will include train tunnels, the sailing ship Columbia, the Indian Village, Matterhorn, monorails, submarines, astrojets, Tom Sawyer Island, mine train through nature's wonderland, Swiss Family Treehouse, House of the Future, Fantasyland and Tomorrowland train stations, Grand Canyon Diorama, Alice in Wonderland, the Skyway, and New Orleans Square. The next map is the 1970s and will feature things like the Primeval World Diorama, It's a Small World, Bear Country, New Tomorrowland, Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and running along the tracks of the railroad will be the Lily Bell private car. These 3 core maps, 1955, 1960s, and 1970s, will be our main focus for the near future. In fact, we have models already that will feature in the 1970s map. But we have 2 more park maps that we might not get to, but if we do, here they are. The next map will be the 1990s, which is a 20-year time jump. This map, if we ever get this far with the project, will feature Splash Mountain and Critter Country, Toontown Depot next to Small World, the entrance temple to Indiana Jones Adventure, a revamped Jungle Cruise, new Fantasyland, and we'll be reusing the 1967 Tomorrowland because that's the version that survived most of the 1990s. The final park map, again if we ever get this far with the project, will be the 2010s, mainly focused around the year 2017. It'll feature the rerouting of Rivers of America with its new rockwork and trestle bridges, but it'll be before Galaxy's Edge or Tiana's Bayou Adventure. You won't even see Galaxy's Edge behind the river. The map will also feature Tomorrowland as it appeared in the late 2010s. And the last map is a fictional ranch called Highball Ranch, which will feature varying natural terrain, including canyons with trestle bridges, prairies, forests, and deserts, with a few whistle-stop towns along the way. There will be an easy mainline track to roam around for a few miles, and then there will be more challenging spurline tracks that go through tougher grades to really test your skills at being a locomotive engineer. Now, the thing about all these maps is that this game will probably release with the 1955 map and the Highball Ranch map, and will add on the 1960s and 1970s maps as part of the free updates, but we cannot guarantee that we'll get as far as the 1990s or 2010s maps. There are two reasons. One is that it depends on how committed our modeling team is to finishing those last two maps, but the other is that Disneyland got a lot more crowded with buildings and rides after the 1970s. The park even filled up with more props and landscape decoration. That might be really demanding on your computer, especially since our sim will be using Unreal Engine 5 or 6 to take advantage of its realistic sunlight and weather engine. I know people suggested we build this in Planet Coaster, but we cannot build the realistic steam boiler operations or achieve realistic graphics in that game. We have to build the sim from scratch. The new Disneyland Railroad Simulator will be so realistic that, in my opinion, Disney could probably use it to train their railroad engineers not just how to drive the locomotives, but how to do basic maintenance. Although I know Disney probably won't. These trains cannot be operated with the press of a single button. It's a real steam simulator, where you have to maintain the fire, water, and fuel levels. You have to monitor the engine's behavior as it changes with the consumption of supplies and with the temperature and humidity of the simulated weather. Even the quantity of passengers on your train will change from station to station, offering different weight loads the locomotive will have to deal with. All that being said, there will be 3 different modes where you can choose to spend 3 hours or so firing up the engine from cold, or you can spend less time firing it up from warm, or if you don't have much time at all, you can set the engine ready to roll. Also, you have an automatic fireman next to you who can maintain the fire and adjust the fuel and water levels so you don't have to. And you'll have control over the age and wear of the locomotive, as well as the experience level of the automatic fireman. And just as a reminder, this is a simulator, not a typical game, so there is no points or reward system. The point of the game is to correctly operate the trains, and the reward of that is learning new skills and not screwing up the timely operation of the railroad. Now, let me show you some models by our really talented team. First is Aaron. We were really lucky that he volunteered because we needed someone crazy enough to build some of the models that made me and Preston shake in our boots. The first one Aaron tackled is Casey Jr. Circus Train. The original 2017 simulator didn't have Casey Jr. There was a representation of the Casey Jr. train tracks, but nothing more. Aaron went and actually built a model. We challenged him with this task because we told him we didn't want Casey Jr. to have a high detail budget. This is one of those attractions that can't be seen from the Disneyland Railroad very well, and so therefore it must sacrifice some level of detail so the trains can maintain their high level of detail. Nevertheless, with great skill, he was able to bring the illusion that the Casey Jr. train had more detail than it actually does, and then he went and animated the train so it could run around its own track. Will, our graphics artist, did the lettering and some of the designs for the words and some of the decorations on the train. I think you guys will love to see it snaking around the curves in the distance. Aaron has also been tasked with working on It's a Small World. With a busy schedule coming up for him, we decided to accelerate Aaron's tasks beyond the 1955 map, because the models he needs to build are too complex for some of us. And as you can see from these images, the model of A Small World is really stunning. This is allowed to be one of the more highly detailed models because the trains will pass right through the facade of the ride, starting with the 1970s map. The next modeler on our team is Kevin, and he joined with the request that he could build ride vehicles. To prove his capabilities, he showed me one of the models he already had in his portfolio, which is this highly detailed Pirates of the Caribbean boat. It's really magnificent. The first task I gave to Kevin was the 1955 Autopia cars, and boy did he do amazingly. Granted, he wanted to make his models more detailed than this, but I had to limit his detail budget because again, Autopia is a slight distance from Disneyland Railroad. That being said, he really found creative ways of making these low poly models look highly detailed. And look at his Jungle Cruise boat. I was shocked when I saw how good it looks. He really did his research and put together a fantastic model that really encapsulates that 1955 Jungle Cruise feeling. Well done. And since then, he's also created this teacup ride vehicle from the Mad Tea Party attraction in Fantasyland. Right now, he's even working on a Mr. Toad ride vehicle, and he and I will be collaborating on a highly detailed model of the Mark Twain riverboat, which we hope players will be allowed to explore on their own. Maybe even ride it around the river. Who knows? Kevin has uploaded these models to his ArtStation website, and you can use the links in the description below to go and see them for yourself in 3D, just like I am. Thank you, Kevin. The next modeler we have is Simon, who has built a few extremely detailed models. Sleeping Beauty Castle was Simon's first assignment, and even though the castle is located in the center of the park and should have a lower detail budget, I felt it was necessary to grant a high detail budget to the castle since it's the park's icon. And boy, he did not disappoint. He didn't just build Sleeping Beauty Castle, he also built the castle courtyard and the Fantasyland show buildings beyond it. Granted, they still need their tents and bunting, but we have our modeler Itai on that job. The castle is absolutely stunning and was built over a handful of build sessions within a few weeks, and players will be able to walk right through the 3 entrances of the castle into Fantasyland. They'll even be able to see the drawbridge mechanism inside. I mean, this model is a beauty. A sleeping beauty, if you will. As soon as he was done, we moved him to the crown jewel of our Disneyland Railroad Simulator. Simon has nearly finished constructing Main Street Station with the highest level of detail that will be seen in the entire simulator. It's going to be so realistic that it will be hard to tell that it's a computer model. Players will even be able to walk inside the station and admire it. Another detail that often gets overlooked when people recreate Main Street Station is its elevation. You see, when you approach the magic portals into Disneyland, you actually walk down a slope an elevation of 1 foot below Anaheim ground level, and as you enter Main Street's town square, you rise up 2 feet in elevation to Disneyland ground level, which itself is 1 foot above Anaheim. Lots of people don't even realize this elevation change. I can't even begin to describe how excited I am to see this model with all its materials and textures applied. It's going to be a showstopper. The rest of the buildings on Main Street will be pretty detailed, but not nearly as much as this station. Our original volunteer, Itai, has been hard at work building the other stations. For the 1960s map, he built Fantasyland Depot. It's meant to match the medieval fair theme of the original Fantasyland. The station was first introduced in 1956, when train operations went from being non-stop trips around the park to being an inline circuit with multiple stops, used as transport. This model will really bring back the nostalgia of Disneyland's early years. But Itai is also currently building a station more familiar to you all. Tomorrowland Station, introduced in 1958, just before Disneyland added the Grand Canyon diorama. Tomorrowland Station was built in the popular mid-century Googie style. Googie style architecture is most famous for its examples of aerodynamic space-age structures, but before the space race was on, Googie style started out as an abstract architecture known for sharp angular shapes. So this train station is the only remaining example of pre-space race Googie style architecture left in Disneyland. And the angular lamps that light up the platform are surplus 1955 Autopia lamps. Itai recently redid the train coupler. You see, a few updates ago, I had posted my train coupler, which received a lot of criticism, and in my defense, couplers are extremely complex shapes that are difficult to make into 3D no matter how many reference photos you have. And Disneyland Railroad's couplers are very uniquely shaped. They don't have a lot of the same physical features as most other couplers I've seen. So when I gave the task to Itai, I knew it was going to really try his patience, and it did. He had to go through a couple of iterations before finally landing on a coupler that I think is dead accurate to Disneyland's. He really did a great job here. And last but certainly not least of our new volunteers is William. Will is our graphic artist. He designed the lettering and stenciling of the Casey Jr. circus train locomotive and the lettering of the Monkeys and Wild Animals cars. At the moment, he's working on the color and stenciling of the Disneyland Railroad excursion cars. The excursion cars changed in the early 2000s. They received an updated paint scheme and some minor hardware additions, so Will recreated both color schemes. I must say, his ability to look at a photograph, sometimes taken at odd angles or inconvenient viewpoints, and then translate that into a perfect recreation of the subject is brilliant. Will prove to be the most instrumental with many different projects around the park. We'll need him to recreate color schemes of the Fantasyland ride entrance buildings, the Moonliner rocket, the Matterhorn rock and snow coloring, and the list goes on. In fact, I feel bad that he has so much work cut out for him. It'd be really great if we could get another experienced volunteer who can do that kind of graphic art to help share the workload. If you can do lettering, stenciling, and graphic art and have experience importing stuff to Blender or turning it into high-quality textures for Unreal Engine 5, please feel free to leave a comment below. Same goes for anyone who uses Blender or 3D Studio Max to build assets of buildings, trees, plants, rocks, or animals. We could definitely use the help. I really want to take a moment to thank our modeling team because they're volunteering their time and energy, and no doubt I've pushed each of them hard to deliver a specific quality. I'm sure I've annoyed each of them with my obsessiveness, but in the end, I always try to make it clear how magnificent the product of their efforts is. I appreciate all the hard work they've put into this game, and I hope they're finding reward in the fruits of their labor, especially when the first version of the game is finally released and people get to enjoy their work. Now, let me go over what players should expect from our sim. First and foremost, it is an authentic steam locomotive simulation, but that doesn't mean that there aren't aspects of it that can appeal to non-train fans. You can get the game just to wander around the park or take free rides on the Disneyland Railroad in any car you like. Imagine being able to step onto the Lilybell, sit in your favorite Lilybell seat, and watch the park go by, lap after lap around the tracks, at any time of day you choose, in any kind of weather you prefer, and it will all look so real. There will be hundreds or even thousands of NPCs wandering the park and waiting at the train stations. There will be rides moving and operating to create kinetic motion. If you want to run the locomotives, you can choose which locomotive you want. Our goal has always been to recreate 5 locomotives. However, I must reiterate that we may not end up building them all. What we know for sure is that there will be the CK Holiday number 1 and EP Ripley number 2. There's a pretty good chance that in a future update we can add Fred Gurley number 3 and Ward Kimball number 5. But the slimmest chance is having Ernest S. Marsh number 4. The reason is simply because it takes a lot of time for Preston to be able to accurately build these locomotives, and because we are limited on engineering drawings of number 4 and limited on sound effects for the different locomotives, we are adamant about having accurate and high quality sound effects. We don't just want to rip the sounds from a YouTube video, we plan to record the sounds straight from the park. And I'm sure some of you are concerned about whether Disney is going to stop this game from happening. Well, we're not worried about that because it's one thing to display copyrighted artwork. It's another thing to create our own artwork depicting a real place and historical time periods. In our game, you can't ride Haunted Mansion, Small World, or Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. You can only ride the old Disneyland Railroad, giving views of a park that doesn't quite exist anymore. So automatically, our game doesn't compete with modern Disney. Plus, the original 2017 game has been out for 9 years, and Disney has never said a word about it. The ship has sailed when it comes to building Disneyland in 3D. Dozens of fans around the world have recreated Disneyland on private platforms like Planet Coaster, Roblox, and Minecraft. That for sure should have triggered Disney to sue those companies, but it's not a situation that hurts modern-day Disneyland, and it's not worth it for Disney to pursue. The Disneyland Railroad Simulator is being built at high speed now that our modeling team has tripled in size. All the models I showed in this update were done in the span of just 24 days. We hope that you won't have to wait too long for the first release of the game, and Preston informed me that in September he'll begin testing the operation and movement of the locomotive, and he'll be building a plane showcase map for us developers, using all the models we've built so far. When that happens, I'll gladly video it for upcoming updates. While work on the first map has accelerated to 3 times faster, that doesn't mean we have a release date yet, but we'll definitely let you all know when we do have a release date. That's it for now. If you love the 3D models that you've seen so far, please let us know in the comments below. See you on the next update.